All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the heart of China, exploring three provinces that are bursting with history, culture, and maybe even a few surprises along the way.
Sounds intriguing.
We've got research notes on Henan, Shaanxi, and Tianjin, all those cultural insights, historical facts, and even some local slang like a personalized travel guide.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for each province,
Exactly. It's all about going beyond those typical tourist spots.
peeling back those layers to see what lies beneath.
Right. And I have to admit, when I first saw Henan on the list, my mind went straight to those Shaolin Temple Kung Fu monks.
Ah, yes, the legendary Shaolin Temple.
But clearly, there's a lot more to discover.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
For starters, Henan's claim to fame as the cradle of Chinese civilization is not just a catchy slogan. It's been home to ancient capitals like Luoyang and Kaifeng.
No, ancient capitals.
We're talking millennia of history here, which means it's practically overflowing with cultural layers.
Okay, so it's not just about Kung Fu then.
Well, those demonstrations are definitely a sight to behold. But
Oh, yeah, I bet.
the Shaolin Temple is really where martial arts and Zen Buddhism intersect.
Interesting.
Picture monks going from these intense kung fu training sessions straight into deep meditation.
So it's this unique blend of physical and spiritual discipline.
Exactly. It's this blend that really defines Shaolin culture.
That's fascinating. Almost like two sides of the same coin.
I like that analogy.
I'm already sensing a theme here, this merging of seemingly opposite ideas. But before we get too philosophical, our notes mention a pretty tragic event too, the 1938 Yellow River flood.
Right. It was a strategic move by the nationalist government to try and halt the Japanese invasion during World War II.
A strategic move, but
But the human cost was immense. Entire villages were wiped out, and the landscape was forever changed.
that's heartbreaking. It's a reminder that even strategic victories can come with a heavy price.
Absolutely. And it highlights the complexities of war and the lasting impacts on communities and individuals.
Okay, well, on a lighter note, let's talk about food. Our notes mention this Luang water banquet, 24 courses of soup.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets interesting.
24 courses, that's a lot of soup.
It's a culinary tradition dating back to the Tang Dynasty. Imagine a multi-course meal where every single course is a soup,
Every single course.
each one highlighting different ingredients and flavors. It's like a symphony of broth.
Wow. It sounds more like a culinary experience than just a meal.
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
all about the presentation, the flavors, the aromas.
Yeah.
It's a feast for the senses.
Okay, moving on to something a little more visual. Henan is also famous for its peonies, right?
Absolutely. Luoyang is known as the City of Peonies.
It's like a city covered in flowers.
And these aren't just any peonies. We're talking about China's national flower, a symbol of prosperity and good fortune.
That's beautiful.
They even have an entire festival dedicated to these blooms, with elaborate displays and cultural performances.
So you can just imagine the colors and fragrances.
It's a true spectacle.
So from historical capitals to kung fu monks to a 24-course soup extravaganza, Henan is full of surprises.
It certainly is. And before we move on, let's try out a local saying, Zhongyuan Dagi, which translates to the great land of the Central Plains.
Zhongguandadi, I like that.
It really captures Henan's historical significance as the heartland of China. It's where so much of the nation's story began.
It's like a starting point for our journey. Okay, ready for our next stop.
Lead the way. I'm eager to see what awaits us in Shaanxi.
All right, let's journey to Shaanxi, another historical powerhouse.
Buckle up, because we're about to step back in time. Shaanxi is home to Xi'an, formerly known as Chan, a city that served as the capital for a staggering 13 dynasties.
13 dynasties, that's incredible.
It's no wonder Xi'an is considered a must-see for history buffs. You can practically feel the weight of history as you walk through its ancient streets.
I can only imagine. And of course, we can't talk about Shaanxi without mentioning the Terracotta Army.
Ah, yes. Emperor Qin Shi Huang's silent guardians. Thousands of life-size terracotta warriors, each one unique, standing guard for over 2,000 years.
It's one of those things you see in pictures and think, okay, that's cool, but seeing it in person must be a completely different experience.
Oh, it's breathtaking. To stand among those warriors, to see the detail in their faces, their armor, it's a powerful connection to the past.
A true testament to the artistry and ambition of ancient China.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've covered ancient capitals, a terracotta army. What about the cultural scene in Shaanxi? I'm particularly intrigued by this Shaanxi opera, or Qinkang as it's called.
King Krang is something else. Imagine a style of opera with incredibly powerful vocals. The singing is so high-pitched, it's almost like a passionate cry.
Wow, so if I thought Beijing opera was intense, this is near level.
You could say that. It's definitely a unique and powerful art form.
Is it meant to be enjoyed by everyone, or is it more for those who appreciate really traditional art forms?
It depends on your taste for strong vocals and dramatic storytelling. But even if you're not an opera aficionado, the costumes alone are a sight to behold. They're incredibly intricate and colorful, reflecting the characters' personalities.
So it's a visual spectacle as well as a musical one.
Precisely.
Okay, I'm adding it to my list of things to experience. But before we leave Shaanxi, we have to talk about food. Our notes mention biang noodles, and the name alone is intriguing.
These noodles are as fun to eat as they are to say. They're hand-pulled, thick, and chewy, and the name comes from the sound they make when slapped on the counter during preparation. Biang.
So the name is onomatopoeic. That's cool. And I heard the Chinese character for biang is one of the most complex characters out there.
You heard right, it has over 50 strokes.
Yeah.
It's almost like a visual representation of the noodles themselves. Intricate, bold, and unforgettable.
I have to see that character written out. But Shaanxi isn't all ancient history and quirky noodles, is it? It also played a role in modern Chinese history, right?
You're thinking of the Xi'an incident.
Yeah.
In 1936, a warlord essentially forced Chiang Kai-shek to unite with the communists against the invading Japanese. It was a pivotal moment in the lead-up to World War II.
It's amazing how a single event can have such far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely. History is full of those turning points.
Okay, before we jump to our final province, any Shaanxi slang we should know?
How about Adi Shen Ah, which means, oh my God, in the Xi'an dialect?
Adishana. Okay, definitely adding that to my vocabulary.
So catchy, isn't it?
All right. We've explored ancient capitals, stood in awe of a terracotta army, and learned about opera that's as intense as it gets. I think I'm ready for something a little more modern.
Sounds like it's time for Tianjin then.
Let's head to the gateway to Beijing and see what this blend of old and new has to offer.
You know, Tianjin is really like where China's past meets its present, this vibrant port city shaped by both Chinese traditions and Western influences.
Yeah, that makes sense, given its nickname, the Gateway to Beijing. It must have a unique vibe with that East meets West kind of atmosphere.
Exactly. Think about the architecture. You might find grand European-style villas, a legacy from its time as a center for foreign concessions, right next to traditional Chinese courtyards.
So it's like this visual representation of cultural exchange, where different architectural styles are literally side by side. That's pretty cool. I wonder if that architectural blend created any interesting urban planning challenges.
That's a good point. Blending such different styles must have required some creative solutions.
Yeah.
I'm sure it also influenced how the city developed over time. But beyond the buildings, Tianjin has a unique art form that I think you'll find fascinating, crosstalk or xiangsheng.
Oh, right. You mentioned it earlier as like a comedic dialogue, right? But what makes Tianjin crosstalk stand out from, say, stand-up comedy or other forms of comedic performance?
Well, think of it as a rapid-fire exchange of wit and humor, often with a satirical edge. The performers, usually two or more, play off each other's jokes, improvising on the spot and using clever wordplay to keep the audience engaged.
Improvising on the spot, that takes some serious skill. I can barely think of a witty comeback in a normal conversation, let alone in front of an audience. I wonder if there are any famous Tianjin crosstalk duos or performers that we could check out.
There are quite a few, actually. Crosstalk has a rich history in Tianjin, with many legendary performers who've honed their craft over the years. Some are known for their sharp political satire, while others focus on poking fun at everyday life, social norms, or even current events.
Sounds like a great way to get a taste of local humor and maybe even gain some insights into Tianjin's culture and society. All right, you've piqued my curiosity about crosstalk now. Let's talk about something a little more tangible. What's the deal with these Tianjin clay figurines? Are they just cute little souvenirs, or is there more to them?
They're definitely more than just trinkets. These figurines are handcrafted, using techniques that have been passed down through generations. Each one is unique with vibrant colors and incredibly expressive faces.
Generations, wow, that suggests a deep-rooted artistic tradition. What kinds of things do they depict? Are there any common themes or characters?
You'll find a wide range of subjects, from legendary heroes and mythical creatures to scenes from everyday life, historical events, and even satirical commentaries on society. It's like holding a miniature piece of Tianjin's cultural heritage in your hand.
So it's not just about aesthetics. They also offer a window into Tianjin's stories and beliefs. I wonder if there are any figurines that are considered particularly iconic or representative of Tianjin's culture. Okay, I'm putting these figurines on my list of things to check out. But first, let's talk about something that's always on my mind when I travel food.
Hmm.
You mentioned googly baozi, Tianjin's famous steamed buns.
Ah, yes. Goobly baozi are a culinary icon in Tianjin. Imagine a steamed bun with skin so thin it's almost translucent, encasing a juicy and flavorful filling.
Okay, I can picture it, but what makes them so special? I mean, steamed buns are pretty common in China, right?
It's all about the technique and the quality of ingredients. The dough is meticulously kneaded and rolled out to achieve that paper-thin skin, and the fillings are prepared with a blend of fresh ingredients and traditional seasonings. It's a simple dish, but the execution is what makes it extraordinary.
So it's like elevating a humble dish to an art form.
I'm sensing a theme here. Tianjin seems to be all about taking something ordinary and infusing it with skill and creativity.
Hmm.
What are the most popular fillings? Is it always savory or are there sweet options too?
The classic filling is pork, but you'll find a variety of options from seafood and vegetables to sweet bean paste. It's a testament to Tianjin's culinary diversity and willingness to experiment with flavors.
Okay, sweet bean paste in a steamed bun. I'm intrigued. I have to try that. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about one of Tianjin's most recognizable modern landmarks, the Tianjin Eye.
Ah, the Tianjin Eye, a giant Ferris wheel built right over the high river. It's a stunning feat of engineering and a symbol of Tianjin's modern aspirations.
I remember seeing pictures, but I have to admit the idea of a Ferris wheel on a bridge seemed a bit odd at first. What was the thinking behind that design? Was it purely for aesthetics or is there a deeper meaning behind it? Well, besides being visually striking, it does create a unique experience. Imagine riding the Ferris wheel and seeing panoramic views of the city with the river flowing beneath you. It's a blend of old and new Tianjin, with historical landmarks on one side and modern skyscrapers on the other.
It sounds like a pretty amazing way to get a sense of the city's evolution, and I bet the views from the top are incredible, especially at night when the city lights are twinkling.
Absolutely. And, speaking of Tianjin, they have a slang phrase that perfectly captures the feeling of being at the top of the Tianjin Eye, bear bang. It means super great.
Perfect bear bang. That's going to be my new go-to phrase when I finally visit. Okay, we've covered architectural fusion, witty crosstalk, intricate clay figurines, delicious baozi, and a Ferris wheel on a bridge. Tianjin is definitely exceeding my expectations, but I'm starting to see a pattern here. Both Hanan and Shaanxi had these moments in history, both tragic and triumphant, that seemed to shape their cultural identities. Did anything similar happen in Tianjin?
Well, Tianjin has a history that's just as complex and fascinating. It's faced its share of challenges, from natural disasters to political upheavals, but it's also a city that's known for its resilience and ability to adapt and reinvent itself. For example, in 1976, Tianjin was hit by a devastating earthquake that caused widespread damage.
Wow, I hadn't realized that Tianjin had experienced such a significant earthquake. I can only imagine the impact it must have had on the city and its people.
It was a defining moment in Tianjin's history. But what's remarkable is how the city rebuilt and emerged even stronger. The earthquake actually spurred a wave of modernization and development, transforming Tianjin into the modern metropolis we see today.
That's a really powerful example of resilience. It makes me think about how we often focus on the negative impacts of historical events, but sometimes those challenges can also lead to positive changes and growth.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's a key takeaway from our deep dive into these three provinces. They each have unique stories to tell, marked by both triumphs and setbacks. But through it all, they've retained their distinct cultural identities and continue to evolve in fascinating ways.
It's a reminder that exploring different cultures is about more than just ticking off landmarks or trying local delicacies. It's about understanding the historical and social forces that have shaped these places and appreciating the resilience of their people.
Exactly, and it's this understanding that helps us connect with different cultures on a deeper level and appreciate the richness and diversity of the human experience.
Well said. Ready to wrap up our journey with a final look at Tianjin.
Lead the way. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on this dynamic city. As we wrap up this whirlwind tour through Henan, Shaanxi, and Tianjin, I can't help but feel like we've only scratched the surface of what China has to offer.
I know, right? It really is a country of contrasts and surprises.
Each province has its own distinct personality, shaped by geography, history, and cultural influences.
Exactly. We started in Henan, the so-called cradle of Chinese civilization, where we explored that fascinating intersection of martial arts and Zen Buddhism at the Shaolin Temple, remember? And who could forget that 24-course Luoyang water banquet?
A culinary symphony of soup. Talk about a unique dining experience.
Right. Then we journeyed to Shaanxi, where we walked in the footsteps of emperors in Xi'an, the ancient capital of 13 dynasties. And of course, we can't forget the Terracotta Army, those silent sentinels guarding Emperor Qin Shi Huang's legacy.
A true testament to the artistry and ambition of ancient China.
And then we landed in Tianjin, the gateway to Beijing, where we saw how China's past and present collide with European-style villas standing next to traditional Chinese courtyards.
It's a city that embraces both its heritage and its modern aspirations, and that duality is reflected in everything from its architecture to its art forms.
Like that quick-witted Tianjin crosstalk, which I'm definitely adding to my to-do list.
Oh, you have to experience it firsthand. It's a
Right.
true cultural gem.
And those Tianjin clay figurines, so intricate and full of life, each one telling a story. And of course, we can't forget about those guguli baozi, those famously delicious steamed buns. It's like Tianjin is constantly pushing the boundaries of culinary creativity.
Absolutely. They're not afraid to experiment with flavors and techniques. It's what makes the city so vibrant and exciting.
It really is. And looking back at our exploration of these three provinces, I'm struck by how much regional diversity there is within China. It's not a monolithic culture, but a tapestry woven from countless threads.
You said it. Each province has its own unique history, traditions, and even dialects. It's what makes exploring China such a rich and rewarding experience.
Exactly. And I think sometimes we forget that it's easy to think of a country as a single entity, but the reality is far more complex and nuanced.
I agree. It's those regional differences that make a country truly fascinating. It's like reading a book with multiple layers, each chapter revealing a new perspective.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so special. We've not only learned about these specific provinces, but we've also gained a deeper understanding of China as a whole.
It's like we've expanded our mental map of the world.
Exactly. So as we conclude our journey, I want to leave you with a question. Which of these provinces resonated with you the most and why? Was it Henan with its ancient history and spiritual depth? Or Shaanxi with its imperial grandeur and dramatic storytelling? Or perhaps Tianjin with its blend of old and new and its vibrant energy?
Each province offers something unique, a different flavor of Chinese culture.
And I hope this deep dive has inspired you to continue exploring these regions on your own, whether through books, films, or maybe even a future trip.
Because the journey of discovery never truly ends.
See you on our next deep dive, fellow explorers.